because it was certain environments that I stayed out of because those particular environments made me angry. Like people say, what's wrong with playing pool? I never said there was anything wrong with playing. I stayed out of the environment of pool halls because it seemed like everybody, instead of enjoying playing, they wanted to challenge one another at playing pool. And they attached money to it. And so within an environment like that, you have a lot of guys and women with egos because they want to win. And there's other people around them who they don't want them to see them lose. And so you're dealing with ego, you're dealing with reputation, and also you're dealing with how everyone around you is going to think of you if you just so happen to lose. And so whether you realize it or not, you become a slave to everyone else's opinion. When you have an anger issue, you're dealing with an individual who is angry because of the effects of the environment. And the majority of the time, this person becomes rigid and irritated tremendously. It seems like he's this way all the time because he is not in understanding of why he's feeling this way. And due to the fact that he doesn't have anyone around him as an uncle, as an older sister, as another family member, in order to pull him to the side and say, why are you feeling like this? What's going on with you? Let's go for a walk, let's talk. Due to the fact that you don't have those outlets in order to seek counsel, it means nobody around you is noticing that you have an issue. To them, you have a problem, which is a misconception, which is a misperception. I recall a night where I was sitting in my room. This was after all of that. I was sitting in my room and I was so angry. And I started grieving. And I went into my great-grandmother's room. And she was sleeping. And so the lights in her room was out. And we used to call her Grandma. Grandma used to always keep her door open. And when you go into Grandma's room, there was this little black chair on the right side, inside of her room. And so there was something about my grandmother that made me feel secure because she was everyone's security. That she was everyone's security at home. And so I'm sitting there in a chair and I'm grieving, silent. So I'm grieving. And she laid there and she said, out of her sleep, I thought she was sleeping. She said, DA, what's wrong? I said, I'm angry. And she said, what are you angry? I said, I don't know. I said, and I'm angry because I don't know why I'm angry. And I told her, and I'm tired of feeling like this. And so she's still laying down. And she said, are you sure you're angry? I said, yeah, Grandma, I want to change. And she said, if you really want to change, she said, start right now. She said, if you don't want to be angry anymore, She said that start right now. Right now. What did Yeshua say? Go and sin no more. What does no more imply? Stop it. Right now. Right now. She said, only you can stop it. Only you can stop it.
Come, boy. See for yourself. From here, you will witness the final destruction of the Alliance and the end of your insignificant rebellion. You want this, don't you? The hate is swelling in you now. Take your Jedi weapon. Use it. I am unarmed. Strike me down with it. Give in to your anger. With each passing moment, you make yourself more my servant. Good. I can feel your anger. I am defenseless. Take your weapon. Strike me down with all of your hatred, and your journey towards the dark side will be complete.
I'm going to make this video very brief. This is just a follow-up of the previous video that I did, which was the part 2. But this deals with pretty much the same subject. You know, the environment and the conformity to the environments and living a life, walking through life or venturing through life and not conforming to that which is going to cause you destruction, and therefore in your embracement of it, it turns into a choice of self-destruction. So as we venture forward into our living experience, we have to always understand that the primary challenge is going to always be ourselves regarding our conscious choices. I been away for a minute because my health hasn't been too well. I've been dealing with a whole lot of exhaustion. You know, I tend to deal with a lot of exhaustion a whole lot, not simply because of my job, but because of my writing and the thought process and meditation and everything. So a little bit too much of anything is not good for you. So I haven't found out exactly which one of those that I'm doing a little bit too much that's causing all of the exhaustion. But in time, as always, it'll be revealed to me. But this is not going to be long. But considering the video footage that I put before this, you notice I put a scene from Return of the Jedi, which is a Star Wars movie, where it had the Emperor trying to convince Luke to allow allow his anger to consume him to the degree that he make a conscious decision against his own being, simply because the emperor has pretty much given himself to his own anger, to his own rage. He wants Luke to follow behind him as an example in order for Luke to destroy himself because he have previously destroyed himself. So in terms of my video when I was talking about my childhood and everything, how things affect you when you are in your younger times as you're growing up and you don't necessarily have the proper influences around you to help you understand exactly what you're feeling on the inside and the reasons why you're feeling a certain way. You just are a intellectually and spiritually sensitive child that's going around absorbing all of these um, entities within the environment that are making an impression on your mind and spirit. And by you're not being intellectually um, and spiritually at the point of knowing exactly what's going on around you, these things are easily making an impression on your mind and your heart, and therefore your intellectual status, simply because you have not reached a state of maturity yet of where you will be able to come in contact with knowing what's going on with you in order for you to resolve those issues yourself, simply because you have conscience of what's going on um, inside of you because of what has been going on in your environment. So this is why I've always appreciated Yeshua's message, which was a message that encourages a whole lot of self-examination, even though it hasn't been taught as such in the churches. You know, they tell you to look outside for this devil, and you know, you hear people constantly saying the devil is after me, and the devil can't defeat me, and the weapons that are formed against me by the devil will not prosper. You know, the church and religion itself has tricked everyone to think that this whole demonic presence is outside of them and is attacking them, trying to destroy them, trying to influence them to say or do certain things, when this demonic presence has always been inside of us. It was created inside of us for the sake of learning who and what we are. Whether our destiny falls either on one one area of the being which is considered good, or the other area of the being which is considered evil. So everything is within us. And the moment that a whole lot of us start to understand that as long as you're looking outside of yourself and not within, you're never going to understand exactly what's going on with you. And coming up in Chicago, I was surrounded by a whole lot of people who were miseducated. I grew up in a household to where it was a whole lot of things transpiring, and as I said, that home was the results of a whole lot of failed marriages, and so we were all subjects of people who had failed marriages, who just so happened to um, cultivate kids from those failed marriages. And by my great grandmother being, you might as well say, the big mama, as was in demonstrated in Soul Food, she took on all of the children because she didn't want all of her grandchildren and her great grandchildren to be lost in the wilderness and therefore succumb by the evils of those wilderness or those killing fields. So even though all that was a good intention of her heart, it still gave birth to a home of where there was a whole lot of chaos going on, and there was a lot of people there who held um, related titles like um, sister, auntie, uncle, and all of those things. However, the the relationships in which those titles were based upon was absent. And so this is one of the reasons why um, chaos was within the home. And even when there wasn't any verbal chaos going on, as I said before, the effects of such cultivated a constant state of tension within the home to where only I was picking off I was picking up these these um these things that were going on in the home because I had a very um, sensitive and aware mind and spirit, and so I was affected by um, most of those things. And so it's like whenever I saw the movie Soul Food, the young man in the movie when the chaos was going on, and the young man broke down and started crying because he was saying like, "Why are y'all always arguing? I mean, what's going on?" And then everybody stopped and they were staring at him, looking at him like, "What's the matter with you? You're the matter. You're the issue." So when you come up in a environment as such, and you're a child that is constantly um, you have this natural instinct of wanting to live right, think right, and to do right. You're in a environment to where it is actually a battlefield and therefore a war zone of principles of what you should do and what you should not do. And by you not being mature and aware of a whole lot of things that you should do and a whole lot of things that you shouldn't do, you become a victim of coming up feeling conflicted because everything around you is so complex because you don't have any guidance. You don't have um, people around you that are demonstrating what their related titles are supposed to be based on. And it's like I was saying, you don't have a father that comes around. And when he did come around, he didn't do anything but criticize. So you're left to learn all of these things upon your own. And I had someone who had sent me an email, and they had asked me, was there anyone else in your position in terms of the way that a whole lot of your friends had viewed you um, as? I gave this I gave the sister two examples, and I'm going to give it to you. There was a guy named Antoine. I had mentioned Antoine before, and he was a mixed guy. I believe his mother was white, and his father was the same mixture that Bob Marley was. Because Bob Marley's dad was white, and his mother was black. And so with those type of mixtures, Antoine came out looking mostly European. However, he identified himself as black. Now, he was the one who we was calling white boy, white boy. He had called out in Jesus' name, "Oh Jesus, please help me." And when I saw that, as I said before, I knew that something was wrong with what we were doing. There was another young man. He went by the name Chester Long. I would never forget Chester Long. He was actually Chester Long reminded me of Stevie Wonder when you look at him because he wore these real thick glasses, and a whole lot of people, um, for some reason, they would say that he was either indifferent or he was retarded. However, he was smarter than a whole lot of us, even though he was in special ed all at the same time. So obviously, there was something going on with the educational system, either that they didn't understand or it was something about Chester Long that we didn't understand. I didn't have a problem with Chester Long, and Chester Long never had a problem with me. But whenever we would read out loud um, in our fifth grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade class, particularly in our fifth grade class, when I had a male teacher under the name Mr. Patterson, rest in peace. Whenever Chester Long would read out loud, he would sound like a narrator. He would sound like a narrator. And Chester Long was teased because he was considered an eccentric, so he acted accordingly because he was an eccentric. And so he would, Chester Long was different. He was different. And what made him different was because we were brainwashed to perceive of what was considered normal in our environment. And anyone who didn't fit into that category of what everyone else said was the norm, those people were considered indifferent. And so I didn't fit into that category as much as Antoine and Chester Long did, but I was still considered um, abnormal after, as I said before, after Oscar Hand came into the picture. All of a sudden, I was considered um, different. But they had asked me what happened to Chester Long and Antoine, and I had explained to them and they had also brought up the 50-year friendship. Who was the one who thought of that? And I was to find out that it was Oscar. He was the one who came up with this whole 50-year reunion of friendship, and that another reason it had explained of why I wasn't thought of to be um, invited. But that's fine. I'm just explaining. Um, I'm just giving you the answers of the person who wrote me the email. These are the answers that I gave them. Now, as far as the 50-year friendship reunion, in particular, whenever you are considered an eccentric and a different type of human being, people like myself, people like Antoine, and people like Chester Long are not looking to be a part of that because of the way that we were perceived and the way that we were treated. And so this is one of the reasons why home training based upon a moral um, status is so much important. And you have to raise your children to treat everyone as human beings, in spite of them being considered different. Now, people like Antoine and Chester Long, um, I've been trying to find them brothers for years and I can't find them. I spent one day with Antoine. I don't remember Antoine's name, but we have a MacDade school um, group on Facebook. MacDade was name of our elementary school. And Antoine is on one of the pictures, and someone had asked about Antoine. And I had told them I spent one day with Antoine, and I had a chance to talk to Antoine. And this is the reason why I know Antoine's nationality, because I sat up in his living room and I listened to him and his grandma talk about his parents. And I recall his grandmother was talking about how he was treated coming up because of his appearance and everything, and how they were planning on eventually moving out of the neighborhood. And I don't recall them ever telling me where they were, where they were going to move. And so this is one of the reasons why none of us exactly know about Antoine's whereabouts. We don't. We also don't know about Chester Long's whereabouts. But the reason for this, I just wanted to touch on this because the way that you treat people, what you do, you rob them of the opportunity of reuniting themselves with the people in whom they came up with, in terms of um, school reunions, um, friendship reunions. The way that these people are treated, they shy away from reunions because they don't want to re-experience what they did in their past. Now, people may say, well, it's because they're holding on to their past. No, it's not that they're holding on to their past, as mother and sister Maya Angelou said, and I misquoted it in my other video. I'm going to be careful and quote this correctly this time. She had said, people will forgive you for the way that you treated them, but people will never forget and forgive you by the way you made them feel. So when you're young and when you are faced with a whole lot of unpleasant experiences that affect you emotionally and psychologically, those things will always make a very lasting imprint on your mind and therefore your personality. And through the impact, certain convictions are developed, culti- cultivated in your mind, and these convictions are equivalent to this like protective shield that you have around your thinking process when it comes to um, not being interested in allowing yourself to venture into certain, um, I would say, opportunities to reunite yourself in certain atmospheres of where you feel as though there is a possibility of being made to feel those same feelings again. So it's just a form of self-preservation. You come to the point of where you have healed enough to accept the fact that all of those things happen, and you have chosen to heal enough to the degree to where you're actually able to move on. And so when you come back in contact with the possibility of coming in contact with certain people again, due to the fact that you've grown these to develop these convictions that your whole life is pretty much guided by, based upon your will to protect your peace of mind. You feel as though it is not best for you to go into those atmospheres again, because you would rather not take a chance on being made to feel as though you felt. been as though you were made to feel in the past. You have to excuse me. I've been dealing with a lot of exhaustion, and I'm actually struggling to get through this. But I put that footage of the Emperor telling Luke, um, when he said, "You want this," talking about his lightsaber, don't you? The hate is swelling in you now. He told him, "Take your Jedi weapon, use it. I am unarmed. Strike me down with it." And then he says, "Give in to your anger." And then he said, "With each passing moment, you make yourself more my servant." So you have to understand, even though these are two characters, you have to understand those two characters are manifested for the movie. However, those two conflicting entities live inside of each and every human being. Because in each passing moment, you are giving into anger, you making yourself more a servant of this demonic force that lives inside of you. So this is why he's saying, with each passing moment, you make yourself more my servant. So I'm going to cut this short because I'm still dealing with exhaustion, but I'm going to close this out with saying, um, as you venture in a whole lot of different directions in life, you're going to come in contact with people, and make certain that you treat people like human beings, because you don't want to have such a bad impact on other human beings that you create monsters out here in this society. And there was a sister that had wrote me an email, and she was talking about when I said that my only regret was my great grandmother not living long enough to see how much I've developed as a human being. And she asked me, what was it that went down in particular your life that made this come out of you? Well, there was a day of where I was in my bedroom, and um, another thing about me is when I was young, I didn't have anyone to help me understand what an introvert was. And so you're dealing with a child who who had anger issues, and you also had a child who was an introvert and didn't know that he was introvert, that he didn't like being bothered. So there was one particular morning, my mother just came in and just interrupted whatever I had going on, which is something that she used to do a whole lot. I'm just going to be totally honest with you. I couldn't stand my mother when I was coming. I just didn't like her. You know, she was always keeping chaos going on. But one particular morning, my great grandmother had to go to the doctor, and she had to go into a specific area over in a black and Puerto Rican neighborhood that was right next to this high school that was called CVS. CVS was a high school that was almost 2 blocks long. However, over there, there was predominantly the black community and a Puerto Rican community, and it was a community of this gang called the El Rookins, and there was another gang called the Vice Lords. And so there was always some gang violence going on over there. And simply because I was um, a martial artist and a boxer, um, my mother asked me to go over there with my great grandmother, that she would be able to go to the doctor check on her health. So that made me very angry because, as I said before, I had anger issues, and I was an introvert, and the majority of the times I didn't like being bothered by people because this was after the effects of everything that I was talking about in the previous video. So what I noticed with my great grandmother is that she knew that I wasn't just angry; I was enraged. I mean, it wasn't physical, but she knew that I was I was angry. I was enraged, and it hurt her feelings. Even though she didn't say that it hurt her feelings, I could look at my great grandmother and tell that she felt like, don't he understand? I need him here with me for my protection, and they had confidence in my protection over my great grandmother because of the environment. The environment was so violent. But even then, I couldn't, due to the fact that I knew that I was sent to be her protector, I couldn't humble the rage inside of me because I just didn't want to be bothered. I was a kid who had anger issues, and I was an introvert up on top of that, and didn't know what an introvert was. I didn't know what being an introvert was. I didn't have any understanding on different levels of anger or rage or anything. I was totally ignorant of these things, and all of this inner turmoil was going on inside of me. However, it was being used in order to protect my great grandmother, and I had no knowledge. So as I got older, and I learned what meditation was, I meditated on that particular day, and it helped me understand it exactly, the conflict that was going on inside of me. And and so this is why I had said that my biggest regret was um, her not living to see how much of a better human being that I have developed into being because of my learning of myself and my effort to learn, um, not only about anger, but what anger is, and finding out what I was coming up in terms of being an introvert, because I could never understand how come I don't. There are times I absolutely just don't want to be bothered by no one. Now, a whole lot of people would say, well, it's probably because you're an Aquarius and your sign, But to me, if I can perceive that there's something that is wrong about um, certain aspects of my personality, if I'm unable to change those aspects of my personality, I could at least try to understand it, and through understanding, I'm able to govern those aspects of my personality um, a lot more effective. And so it took me a long time to come to understand those things. So yeah, but when it comes to coming in contact with how we treat one another as human beings, that is very, very important, because especially in our childhood, because as I said before, our minds are very fertile. and our feelings are very fertile and everything. And it takes some of us a lot more longer to mature, and it's only because of the environment of having people in your life that's actually paying attention to you instead of criticizing you. People are paying attention to you instead of condemning you and calling you evil and all of those things. Because my two particular sons, I'm always paying very much close attention to them, and I'm always asking them, "Why are you okay? You feeling okay?" Blah blah blah. And see, the whole thing is the reason why I pay very close attention to my sons is because everything that I've come to know, I had to find out on my own. I had to find out these things on my own. So I'm going to cut this short because I need to get some more rest and getting ready to start my work week. And so, with that being said, everyone have a pleasant day. I wanted to go further into this, but just don't have the strength to do so right now. So I'm just going to lay it down, and everyone have a good rest of your day and stay human.